Here at MOTIV8 Church, we started a brand new series last week called Difficult People. Last week got a little weird because everybody came, oh, pastor's going to be talking about difficult people. He's going to deal with my haters. First week, we dealt with this. What do I do when the difficult one is me? What do I do when the difficult one is me? Woo! A lot of us found last week that every time we're pointing fingers at everyone else, it honestly was us who was doing a lot of the work. What do you do when your enemy is your inner me? So as we deal with difficult people, I pray that we got it last week. Did we get it last week? Yeah. All right. We're going to walk through one step before we continue on. Try this out. Say, I am sorry. I just cussed. Exactly. Say this again. I am sorry. How can you point out something that someone's doing when you're not willing to do it yourself? Some of us have yet to grow and mature, not only as a believer, but as a human being, because we're still stuck in offense that happened in middle school. They joked about your shoes in 6th grade. Get over it. I am sorry. What does that look like? It's acceptance of my part and what I did to make you feel like you feel. It's me turning and repenting from the action that created the offense. And then it's living life like Christ called me to. One more time. I am sorry. Cool. We got that out the way. This week as we deal with difficult people, I want to deal with the topic of what it's like to build in the face of manipulation. How do I build in the face of manipulation? Well, Pastor, what does building look like? It looks like building your family in a way that you never saw growing up. You never saw your dad at home, but now you're trying to do it, and it seems like everything is coming against you while you try to do it, what God called you to do. What does building look like? Building looks like me being an entrepreneur and starting a business, though I've never seen anyone in my bloodline start a business. What does building look like? Building looks like me being out of debt and not being in debt to the whole world, because most of us, our Savior isn't Jesus, it's Amex. Building in the face of manipulation. Well, Pastor, you don't get it. It's not as easy as you make it sound. Let's walk the text and let's see what God says. As we walk through today, I want to deal with the story of Nehemiah. Now, Nehemiah was facing opposition, and the reason being is because he was a man living in the land of Persia. Now, Nehemiah is not home, but he's acting as the cupbearer for the king, Artaxerxes. And he's in a position where he has the ear of the king, but he also has some concerns of himself. When you're a builder, you could be working someone else's vision while there's a burning vision already in your heart. What do you do when you're called to work a vision, but the one that God called you to do seems so far away? How do I still build when I still got this 9 to 5? How do I build working as a business owner when there seems to be no time to even build? What do I do? Now, Nehemiah is making a decision here because word got back to Nehemiah that his home in Jerusalem, the walls had been torn down into ruins. What he loved no longer was. What happens when I'm building a vision and I get a call that what I once saw standing no longer stands? Nehemiah is deeply troubled, and he felt the strong calling that he was called to go help build again. Somebody say build again. So here it goes. Despite the risk of feeling as though he could be killed for his request, he goes to the king and he says, King, Jerusalem, I need to go home. I got to build something. Can I go? A lot of us don't even have the gall to ask what God told you should be. Let's get it. You don't even have the wherewithal to walk in what God said is and step out of fear into faith. Nehemiah had to understand that the call on my life is bigger than the consequence of a no. I have to know without a shadow of a doubt, I am fully convinced that I am called to build. So he goes to King of Artaxerxes and he says, hey, King, can I go home? I need to go build. What happens is amazing. King of Artaxerxes, he says, you're good. Go. And I'm going to give you the materials to do what you believe you're called to do. Jesus, help me. How many of us, the resources of the vision that God has given us is locked away in the fear that we're scared to ask? Here you are trying to figure out how it's all going to get paid for, but in your ask is the resources to your yes. What would happen if you were honest with your boss instead of sneaking during your work time to build your business? Ask them if it's okay during my lunchtime if I work on my company. You would be surprised that they may let you work from home. Can I talk? How do you expect your business to be blessed, but you're still in the time from another company? Ready to poach clients from the business that you already work at, hoping that that foundation would settle and you could stand on top. Okay, let's work. We here. I ain't got to worry about another service coming after. How? How can you hope that you'll be able to build a family dynamic of a loving husband and a loving wife on a foundation of you stealing someone's spouse? How? 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 How can I have hope that what I build will stand when I'm doing it in a way that God is not pleased? First, Nehemiah received confirmation from the word of God, and then he had faith to ask who was over him in authority for the freedom to go do what he had been called to do. Is it so that the resources that you have could have been given to you, but you thought it was easier for you to sneak out rather than ask out? So Nehemiah makes a decision. He asks, and King Artaxerxes says, you know what, I'll do it for you, and I'm going to give you the resources. Now what happens is Nehemiah arrives back in Jerusalem, and everything he thought it was. Difficult people don't start when they start talking. It starts when you're confirming that what you thought was torn down is torn down. The first difficult act that you have to get over is the act of fear when you see ruins where you once saw victory. I got to get over my mind. I got to get over my memory. I got to get over my hope and desire that I'll see what I once saw. If you've been called to ruins, guess what you'll see when you show up? Ruins. You're hoping you'll see something standing because it means you can get away. I'm convinced that I'm called to build. So when he gets home, he finds Jerusalem exactly as he saw it. But Nehemiah makes a decision that he organizes the work. He assigns each person a specific part of the wall. Everybody has a part. Everybody has a part. Your difficult person may not be in your life because they are mad about what you're doing. You just may be building on their part of the wall. Brittany, where are you? Mind your business. I'm a builder, just who I am. I've been a builder since I can always remember. I am a builder. You give me 2 twigs, I'm going to make a house. Some people call it a hustler. I'm a builder. I'll sell ice to an Eskimo, water to a well. What do you do when I build and there's materials left over? It means that you weren't on the right part of the wall. Here you are disrupting someone else's work because you're not validated enough to build what you've been called to build. So he goes and he assigns and he organizes the work, and he gives this conversation of working tirelessly day and night. Somebody say day and night. Difficult people start when you got a work ethic in you because God called you, but they have not been called. Difficult people will tell you to rest when you've been called to run. Oh, here we go. There is a different type of animal. Some people say, I got the dog in me. When you've been called without a shadow of a doubt, I'll sleep when I'm complete. But when you have people attached to you who have not been called to you, they'll try to distract you. You have to understand that every need is not your call. And there's some people who will try to delay you because they don't have the same hustle as you, because they don't see the same vision as you. Lord, I need some workers. I need some builders. I need some people who will see that even when I feel tired, I'll work next to you so you can see you're not alone. You got to rearrange. So what ends up happening is Nehemiah assigns, and they're working tirelessly day and night with tools in one hand and a weapon in the other. Now, if that ain't building, I don't know what it is. Why is this important? Because you have to understand, people aren't being difficult. I'm just being aware. I have to be aware that I have yet been called to build, but there is still an enemy who wants to see what they've already destroyed again. And what can end up happening is you'll act out of fervor and act out of joy and not act out of wisdom. And the problem is you call a bunch of builders, but you don't got nobody who knows how to fight. The difficult people in your life, it's not that they don't know what it is they need to do. You just hired the wrong people. You got the wrong type of people. It's not an issue. You got to understand that everyone in your life is not the problem. It may have started when you started resourcing. Why do you think jobs spend so much money trying to hire the right people? Can I be real? Because you didn't save your money and you're about to get kicked out of your house. You now want a job to rush to hire you, and you don't have the actual work ethic or the actual resume to do the job. But you don't understand that your $75,000 position, if I hire the wrong individual to come into the right organization, you can tear down something that costs $100 million because of your wrong yes. It's not always the man. You got to vet. You have to know without a shadow of a doubt, when I turn left and I can't see right, that you're still going to do right. Right? You got to vet the people in your life. Difficult people aren't there because they always choose to be difficult. They're just doing what they know. We see here that Nehemiah makes the decision that they're going to defend against the attacks, and through perseverance and faith and unity, they did what was impossible in 52 days. They built the wall back up in 52 days. Good God. Something that once took years with the right individuals was done in 52 days. It's not that the work is hard. You just got the wrong people. What does it look like to build a house with all plumbers? You're going to have toilets galore, but you ain't finna have no walls. It's the same thing with vision. You have to know what you need before you start looking for help. Jesus. Because you just think you've been called, but you don't know what you've been called to. The math isn't mathing. You have to stay at the feet of Jesus to hear what he's telling you to build before you get excited and go run trying to hire. Same thing in business, same thing in family, same thing in ministry. Before you start trying to find a husband, why don't you wait to see what the Lord says is going to be the one for you? You want an Idris, but you don't know what Idris Elba do at home. You don't know. You don't know. You can go after a model and not know what takes on the inside. We see here that Nehemiah does this in 52 days with the people. And he had to be wise because he made sure that he assigned the right people to the right part of the wall. And I can only imagine that this wall, though archaic in time, had to have some similarities across the line. There wasn't a form of brick used at this part and a different form of brick used at this part. There had to be a constant inside of the build. Could it be that the difficult people in your life are irking you because they're showing up with their own materials? We think that we can just stop at the blueprint. You got to work the whole vision. What ends up happening here is that they made the decision to build, but it didn't make everybody happy. You got to be okay with knowing that at my yes to God doesn't mean that everyone's going to celebrate. Let's try that again. You are looking for a parade because you said yes, not knowing that some of the greatest enemies in your life will show their face the moment you say you're done. Can I tell you now, you're wondering why it's quiet in your life. Well, Pastor, I don't have any enemies. I don't have any difficult people in my life. It's probably because you haven't started building yet. You haven't built anything. And the problem is, the people in your life who are going to start talking, they're going to start talking when you start building. You're not a threat until you build. You're not. You're not a threat until you build. What does that look like? That means that people are going to come out with megaphones before they come out with shovels. Everyone's a critic. Everyone is a critic until they got to do it. It's the same thing with the family. Everyone's a critic on how you have to raise your kids, but they don't have any. Well, little Johnny shouldn't jump on the table. You don't have a little Johnny. Little Johnny's been on a bender for the last 4 days, and I'm just glad he's not pulling my hair out. Like, you don't know. You don't know. Same thing in marriage. Well, I wouldn't let him do that. For me, you can't keep a man. All right. What type of church did I show up to? They haven't even opened the word. Here we go. Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 1. It says, when the word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, the rest of our enemies, that I had rebuilt the wall, and not a gap was left in it, though up to that time I had not set the doors and the gates. Wait. I had rebuilt the wall and not a gap was left in it. Which means that Nehemiah had built the wall to the point of where it could survive. The only thing he had not done yet was set the doors and the gates. The problem is you got to be okay when you rebuild something that the people in your life who are difficult are going to complain because it doesn't look like what they once knew. Your business model doesn't look like the business model of their Instagram influencer. Well, what I would do is I would post this 6 times a week, and I would do that. Baby, you owe 5 people and you don't even show up to work on time, but you want to tell me how to run a business? Well, I wouldn't let him hang out with his friends after work. I wouldn't let him go out to the bar and hang out with his friends once a month or once a week. Well, you don't have a husband, a man, a boyfriend. You don't even got no suitors. I went back, suitors. Everybody's a critic. They were critiquing based upon what they once knew. These walls don't look like those walls. Can I be the bad guy for a second? If those walls were so good, they would have never tore down. And the problem is, what someone deems as the right thing in their eyes, they'll hold you to because they don't have anything to do for themselves. The loudest critics are the people who aren't building. If you were actually building what God called you to build, you wouldn't have no time to look at what I'm building. We would just have an after building time. It was a long day of building today for me, long day of building today for you, but you got time to be online watching me build. Goes on to say in verse 2, Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message. Come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. But they were scheming to harm me. The difficult people in your life first start out by trying to distract you from what you've been called to build. This is for all the builders in the room. You got to be okay with silencing the voice of the distractors. Distractors, if they can't be in your midst, will try to get in the mix. If I can delay your schedule, I can delay your build. It goes on to say in verse 3, so I sent messengers. This is Nehemiah responding. I sent messengers to them with this reply. I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? Woo. Why should the vision stop because you want an audience with me? Some of us can't be found at the work site. Can I tell you one of the greatest things of pastoring this church? We're a year old as of last week. Hey. Most people don't know when we first started, this building was a gift. And I sat inside of this building, all 52,000 square feet. I had to drop square foot. Hey. Building is lonely. Because when people saw a blessing, I saw an empty. I was here by myself. These lights are motion sensitive. It was dark unless I was around. And I sat in this building with no admin, with no secretary, with nothing. But I had to wait for contractors. When you've been called to build, you got to be okay with not having a crowd around you. Jesus help me. There was a time where if I had left the room, the people who I'd actually called to help me build would have found an empty place because I removed myself to go have a conversation with someone who had no intentions on helping me build. What could have been perceived as a lunch meeting for them to distract me actually was time for me to be away from what I've actually been called to build. You see here in the text, it says that I'm carrying on a great project. I cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? Isn't it interesting that the people who are difficult in your life will always call you down? It doesn't say, come up to me. Because some of the difficult people in your life, they're comfortable at their low place. And it seems as though it's the highest they'll ever go. But just because you decided to no longer develop, and just because you decided to no longer mature, and just because you decided no longer to grow, and just because you decided no longer to network, and just because the fire that used to be in you no longer burns, you want me to step down. This hunger in me is not from me. And the moment you understand that, you'll know who you are. It goes on to say in verse 4, 4 times they sent me the same message. And each time I gave them the same answer. Difficult people in your life will knock more than once. They'll knock more than once because I don't believe you're fully convinced. If you're not fully convinced about what you've been called to build, I'll think that on the 3rd time, I'll make you say no. Okay. It goes on to say in verse 5, then the 5th time, Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message, and in his hand was an unsealed letter. Difficult people in your life will always read your mail. What does that look like? Some of the difficult people in your life haven't always showed themselves as enemies. We see here that the 5th time that Sanballat has sent his aide, which means that I've gone beyond sending messengers and now I'm going to send someone close to me. That's why you got to be careful about your friends' mutual friends. Just because you friends with them don't mean I got to be friends with them. I'm good. I'm good over here. I don't have enough bandwidth to vet and build. It goes on to say in verse 6 that in that letter it was written, it is reported among the nations, and Geshem says it is true, that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt, and therefore you are building the wall. Moreover, according to these reports, you are about to become their king. Isn't it interesting that the difficult people in your life will threaten you with coming up higher? I'm going to threaten you with you being bigger than who you've seen yourself to be. Statements like this. I heard they about to make you a little supervisor or something at your job. You have to be careful because your enemies, the difficult people in your life, will plot on your insecurities before they plot on your facts. And when they can't get to your insecurities, they'll work on their own. We'll deal with that later. Verse 7, it goes on to say that even they've appointed prophets to make this proclamation about you in Jerusalem. There is a king in Judah. Now this report will get back to the king, so come, let us meet together. Difficult people will try to make you fear themselves into meeting with them to distract you from what you're called to do. If I can make you fear that what you've been called to build is at the point of breaking down, I'll get you to step away from what you've been called to. Let us meet together to converse about the threats. Can I let you know, as long as you're breathing, there'll always be a threat. You haven't been called to follow Christ to be threatless. You've been called to Christ to let the weapons not form and not work. The problem is you don't want to see no weapons, but that's not the truth. That's not the truth. I love weapon builders. I love them. I love to see them form their greatest weapon. I just know I'm protected. So it goes on to say in verse 8, I sent them this reply. This is Nehemiah talking. Nothing like what you're saying is happening. You're just making it up out of your head. In other words, layman's term, boy, you tripping. You have to know that without a shadow of a doubt, as I've been convinced I'm called to build, I have to be convinced I'm not always called to respond. The time it's going to take for you to defend yourself in the response is time taking away from you actually building. Can I tell you, if someone's convinced that you're wrong, or they're convinced that you're evil, or they're convinced that you don't want anything good for them, there's nothing you can say to change their mind. He goes on to say, they were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work and it will not get completed. But I prayed, now strengthen my hands. You ready? Some of us, our hands are not tired from building, it's tired from writing. You're catching cramps in your hands because you're trying to respond to every detractor, to every difficult person. You've texted your mama about 9 pages when you should have just said, be blessed. Can I tell you, there's nothing worse than getting to the end of the building season and finding yourself tired, not from building, but from responding. Because now the problem is you can't even dwell happy inside the walls because you're tired from fighting. And you ain't even fighting your enemies, you fighting people who ain't even invited to the party. Your prayers need to shift. Why is this important? If the enemy cannot distract you from building, he'll take up your time with God. So here you are now, your hour of time with the Father in the morning is full of you complaining about your enemies when you should be praying, Lord, strengthen my hands to complete the work, but you're hoping that they'll get destroyed. Okay? Your time of worship in the morning is now songs about a great defender rather than it is a great provider. Because if I can distract your mind off of Jesus, I can delay your build. It goes on in verse 10 and it says, one day I went to the house of Shemaiah, son of Delaiah, the son of Mehetabel, who was shut in at his home. And he said, Let us meet in the house of God, inside the temple, and let us close the temple doors, because men are coming to kill you. By night, they are coming to kill you. If the enemy can't distract you by stopping you building, he'll distract you in your time with the Lord. And then when he can't do that, he'll try to show up at your church. Can I tell you? Church is just a hospital. There's a burn level, there's a trauma level, there's an ER, there's a maternity ward, but inside of every hospital, there's an insanity level. And just because you're in the recovery room doesn't mean everybody else is. What will end up happening is you'll stop building because the difficult one is near you, close to God. Can I tell you how to get over a difficult person? A difficult person at church is like this. They'll get on your nerves, be mean to you, rude to you, come up crying, speaking in tongues, and touch you on the shoulder and think that that's an apology. I need you to come out the heavenly realms and use your words. You offended me in English. Apologize in English. Ain't nothing worse. There's nothing worse. He tries to convince Nehemiah to visit him inside the temple. But the enemy knows that if I can distract you in the temple, you still won't finish building. So it goes on to say in verse 11, but I said, should a man like me run away? The problem is you don't know who you are. You don't know who you are. Not only are you a builder, you're a called builder. The difference between being a builder and a called builder is if I don't build, his will not be done. The weight. If I don't make this family work, if I don't make this business come to fruition, if I'm not a good steward on my job, if I'm not a good friend, goes on to say, or should someone like me go into the temple to save his life? I will not go. Verse 12, it says, I realized that God had not sent him, but that he prophesied against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. Can I tell you, some of the people in your life, they have all this heavenly knowledge, but they're no earthly good. Some of the difficult people in your life are difficult to you because inside of their whispers of deceit are scriptures laden in words of wickedness. If you have to finish your insult with a scripture, I don't want it. I'm good off that. These people were hired. Why is this important? Because what will end up happening is you'll appoint people in your life because they have the assets of where you want to go. Just because you have a car doesn't mean I should take you car shopping. Just because you have a family doesn't mean I should take counsel from you because you have a family. You have to test it by the Spirit. The problem is you're testing it by what is perceived as fruit. But you don't know that the people who have access to God have actually been paid off to be used for the enemy. And here you are now appointing an individual as an advisor to a space that they actually want to destroy. These individuals had already prophesied around Nehemiah, so he knew them as prophets, but he also was in the spirit enough to use discernment to know that what they were saying wasn't from God. The difficult people in your life, they have not gained access because you let them in, it's because you weren't prayed up. Goes on to say in verse 13, he had been hired to intimidate me so that I would commit a sin by doing this. And then they would give me a bad name to discredit me. Good God. I may not stop you from building, but I just want to get you out of character. I've tried everything I could to make you give up. I've tried everything. I've tried to delay you. I've tried to destroy you. I've tried to convince you that you shouldn't do it, but I haven't been able to get to that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to frustrate you out of your character. Because even though you'll complete it, there'll always be an asterisk. Goes on to say this. Remember Tobiah and Sanballat, my God, because of what they have done. Remember also the prophet Noadiah and how she and the rest of the prophets have been trying to intimidate me. Pause. You have to be aware in the spirit of the intimidation. What does manipulation look like? I'm about to use a word here, and it's kind of new, it's kind of not. But this word in itself is going to trigger some people. Gaslighting. Jeez. Gaslighting. What is gaslighting? It is simply this: to manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or powers of reasoning. One more time. It's to manipulate someone using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or powers of reasoning. Pause. Everything's not gaslighting. Sometimes you're just around the wrong people, and that's okay. Put the people in your life in the right place. To manipulate using psychological methods into questioning their own sanity or powers of reasoning. What does that look like? How's that little business doing? How's them bad kids doing? How's that cheating husband doing? Statements that will manipulate you slowly but surely into believing the first statement before the reality. I'll sow a seed of discord right before I say a real. There's 4 types of gaslighting I'm gonna show you. Number 1, the straight up lie. Write that down, the straight up lie. This form of gaslighting, it seems to be the most harmless, but it is also one of the most harmful. It seems harmless to the individual who's gaslighting you, but it's one of the most harmful realities for the individual it's being done to. The straight up lie is a typical lie that is aimed at hiding a secret intention. But it leaves you feeling the worst because at the end of the day, you feel betrayed by believing what was presented to you. It'll have you questioning your own means of ethics and morals. Why was I dumb enough to believe that? Can I let you know this? Oh, I'm about to get yelled at. If they cheated on the last 5 individuals they were with, they're going to cheat on you. If they keep getting denied on that job because of that felony that seems to keep rising back up, run. But they'll lie to you to make you believe that it's the job against them and not their own actions. What is gaslighting? Gaslighting is this. It's making you believe that is very true is actually not what you think it is. I'm not abusive. I just get angry. It's not that I want to yell at you. It's just you do dumb things. It's not that I don't want to put my hands on you, baby. It's just that I don't know how to love and touch the right way. I can't tell. Oh. Be mindful of the hand that will bruise you will also try to soothe you. We see here. Oh, Jesus. I make it real straight and simple. I'm sorry. That white lie will turn into a black eye. All right. Here we go. Be mindful. All right. They can profess Jesus and still beat your behind. Watch yourself. All right. Next one. Reality manipulation. Jesus. Reality manipulation is this. It's where you can be made to feel like you're slowly losing your sanity. You got to watch this person. They'll gaslight you not all at once, but they sow seeds of discord. And they stay along the journey. And they'll make you believe that they want to see you win. But they're just staying close enough to water the seed that they planted when they first met you. This is why you got to be careful of what you post online. What you think is you being real is actually a honing cry for the individual who wants to destroy you. You think it's just a song. Today wasn't a great day, and now your phone start ringing. You got to be mindful. Somebody told me, Pastor, it doesn't seem like you post a lot on Instagram. No, because I don't want you in my business. You don't want a pastor. You want an influencer. And I'm sorry, that ain't me. What can end up happening is your victories being posted alarms the enemy that you're doing well, but they'll watch for the little cues. You want to know things? Such as you not wearing your wedding ring in a photo. All of a sudden, your ex start calling. Things like this. You going to dinner with your children without your spouse. He's still tripping, girl. He acting up again. What made you believe that? Well, I saw. Exactly. You saw. What'll end up happening is these seeds of discord, if you're not careful, you have to choke it at the root. Because just when you reach the end towards victory, they show up to cause delay. Next one, scapegoating. Write this down, scapegoating. Whew. This one is an act or practice of blaming the failure on you. Girl, you know that business ain't work because you ain't called me to help you with your finances. Well, you're broke. Girl, PD, he wouldn't have been in jail if you would have let him stay the night at my house back when he was younger. You have weird touches. No. Things like this. Girl, you don't have to wait that long. You've been dating that man for 6 months. He should have asked you to marry him by now. Whoa. Just because you want it to be a thought. For the older saints, whoremonger. Because you wanted to rush past inhibition into execution, now you want me to rush into something that you should have said no to. What does that look like? It looks like someone penalizing you from the factors of what they're dealing with because they were in the wrong, making you fear what's happening right. It's not a red flag for me. I'm in his will. I'm not worried because he's pleased. But because you did wrong, you want check engine lights on everybody around you in your life. And what will end up happening is they'll make you believe that you're wrong even though you're pleasing God. Next one, last one, coercion. Oh, this one's dangerous. Here we go, last one. Coercion is this. It's when someone will gaslight you into manipulation using wit or humor. It's one of the most annoying things. Just because you said something rude doesn't make it not rude because you giggled after it. Girl, that baby got a big head. Girl, you don't know who that child's daddy is. Girl, your man didn't even want you. He wanted me. Using wit or humor to mask realities. You said what you meant. You just tried to not make it feel like it actually felt. It still hurt. You have to be mindful. And the thing about it is, you may not be the one who's the victim. They got quiet in this Lutheran church. I may have just explained you to a T. That's why you have to act different around different people. Do you find yourself putting on a different hat in different conversations? Do you find yourself having to, you make a statement like this, I gotta diminish myself when I'm in rooms with different people. They can't handle the real me. For the churchy people, they can't handle all this oil. It's not that they can't handle the oil, they just don't want your filthy hands touching them. You've been the self-appointed prophetess of the family and don't no one ever want you to pray over no food. Don't bless nothing. Don't touch nothing. You pray at your house and in your house only. Coercion. You have to be mindful. If you're saying, well, Pastor, I want to get out of this mindset, turn to this and we're out of here. Proverbs chapter 26. I know we went a little long, but I wanted to spend some time on this. Proverbs chapter 26, verse 24. It goes on to say this. Enemies disguise themselves with their lips, but in their hearts they harbor deceit. Though their speech is charming, do not believe them. For 7 abominations fill their hearts. Their malice may be concealed by deception, but their wickedness will be exposed in the assembly. Whew. What does that mean? That means take the difficult people in your life and put them in the room with your actual friends. Because that unmitigated gall that they have when they got you by yourself, they don't got that same rough talk when they're around some people who actually know God. Repeat what you said to me in that text message. Well, we're waiting. You don't have that same bandwidth. You don't have that same energy. And you have to be okay with understanding that those who you once isolated with to find wisdom, now in this season may be looking to find you grief. Place them in a room with other individuals. Who are these individuals? They're the ones who will pray for you, and they're the ones who will fight for you. You got a room full of prayers, and you ain't got no fighters. You got a room full of fighters, you ain't got no prayers. You need a room of balanced individuals who know how to do both and can switch at the drop of a dime. Well, Pastor, it seems like you only got Christians around you. No, I got some shooters in the cut too. I got some shooters in the cut. And I'll restore your ear like Peter. Play with me if you want to. Please don't get it twisted. I heard this growing up. Don't take my meekness for weakness. There you go. Get the people who are the loudest in your life, who want to disagree with everything you know God told you to do. Place them in a room full of shooters and watch how they crumble. You're loud in a room with me by myself, but you'll never part your lips at lunch. You loud with me in Instagram in the comments and sending me veiled DMs. Oh, you don't, how to file for bankruptcy for your business? You don't get those videos? Okay. How to file for divorce in Virginia in less than 48 hours? You send me these resources, but you don't got nothing to say when you're around people in real life. Coercion. Verse 27, it goes on to say this as we close. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. All I can tell you is keep building. Because while you're building, God is fighting. And while you're warring, God is delaying. And while you're standing and you're doing what God called you to do, don't find yourself distracted and out of the will of God, fighting people who aren't even going to make it to see you complete. Stay rooted. Stay grounded. And what you'll see on the other side of this difficult people is the victory that they're not allowed to go to.
What an amazing word. Thank you so much for being here with us at MOTIV8 Church. If this word impacted you in any way, hit the like button and let us know in the comments. But take it a step further. Share it with a friend, share it with a family member that you know their life could be changed by this word. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss anything that's happening within the life of the ministry. And if you would like to partner with us financially, click the link in the description box. We love you and we'll see you next week.